Fittingly, when Cody walked by the dining room, I said, "Hey Cody, are you available Sunday to preach?" But he came back later and says, "Oh, I don't even know what I'd say." So I know it started him thinking, and as we've kind of gone down this path, it so happened with Roger being gone this Sunday and next Sunday, there were 2 openings, and the board and the elders, I don't know if they twisted their arms or what they did, but they got Cody and Caleb lined up here for this week and next week to give a message. And for those of you that don't know, we're on a countdown. Everybody's on a countdown. These 2 guys are on a countdown as well. They've got 3 Sundays left with us. So they got this week, next week, and somehow they ended up the last Sunday being potluck. I don't know how that happened, but it did. So then we'll be taking them off to college. But they've got some interesting things to share with you. I know Cody was talking with me this morning. He's excited about what he has to share. And so without further ado, Cody's going to come up and share.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So, when the elders approached me with the opportunity for doing a sermon, I was kind of hesitant at first, but then I figured, well, I guess I could probably cobble together some thoughts and say something. So, coming up with a sermon was a lot harder than I would have thought. So I have a whole new respect for all of you pastors and preachers out there, because it's a lot harder than I would have thought. So my first idea was to just take some ideas from a preacher who is way more experienced than me, but that kind of felt like cheating to me. So I decided to come up with my own completely original idea. God is not dead. So as you can tell, completely original. Thank you for laughing, I really appreciate it. So I decided to not try and do something super revolutionary, and it's kind of something I'm sure all of you guys already know, that God is not dead. But I hope to provide some more insight and scientific background knowledge to that. So now all of creation obviously points to God. So Psalms 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the work of his hands. And Romans 1:20, for since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. So the universe that God has created is the proof that he exists. And the universe is so complex that I could have dove into any aspect of it, and it is so complex. But I decided to go with, that's not right, humans. Because we are the crown of creation. We are God's masterpiece. We are the pinnacle of creation ourselves. So I decided to focus on us. So first we'll zoom in, and then we'll zoom all the way out, and then you'll hopefully understand how complex the human body truly is. So, does anyone recognize this? It is a carbon atom, as you can see on the screen right there. And this is the basic atom for all of life on the planet Earth, because we are all carbon-based molecules. So, starting at the atom, as simple as you can get. All right, let's zoom out slightly. Anyone recognize this? I heard someone say it. It is deoxyribonucleic acid, also known as DNA. It is the basically code that creates us. So all of our cells have this in us, and it's pretty complex, as you can tell. This is probably the picture that you're more used to. And every single dot you see there on the left is a different atom. So as you can tell, we're already getting pretty complex, and we haven't even zoomed out very far at all. So one cell in the human body has 3 billion base pairs of DNA. So the base pairs are guanine, cytosine, and adenine, thymine, and there's 3 million of those pairs in one cell. So if you stretched out all of that DNA 2 meters, and for all of you who are American and not metric, it is a little over 6.5 feet. So that's still pretty long. And if you took all of the DNA in the human body, it would cross our solar system twice. So that is gigantic. And somehow, it randomly assortment of atoms, it's curled up so small that it all fits inside us. Which, you know, randomly, right? It's randomly coiled up that way. So, DNA is the building block. Well, it's the code that is read on how to make different things. So, this is one of the basic proteins. So proteins are things, so we've zoomed out again a little farther, that DNA tells the cell how to make. And I'm sorry if this is sounding like a science lecture. I got a lot of this from my organic chemistry class. So, anyway. This is a capsid protein, and it is it's a structural protein. Yes, it is a structural protein, so it makes up, these type of proteins make up the basic building blocks of like the outer cell wall. And this one specifically is the outer cell of a virus. So the genetic code would be inside there. As you can see, it kind of zooms in to see different things. And so all proteins are made of amino acids. So, this is another type of basic protein. It is a contactile protein. As you can see, it looks completely different. There's a lot of variety in the human body. It is insane how much variety there is. And this one, this is an acetine, and it is in our muscle fibers. So I'm sure you've heard that muscles are made of protein. They definitely are, and these are muscle fibers, and they expand and contract when you move your muscle, that kind of thing. But it's not the exact same, but all of these proteins are made of the same 20 basic amino acids. So this is a storage protein. And so the human body is an organic element, which means it doesn't like inorganic, or organic, so it doesn't like inorganic elements that much. And these guys store inorganic elements. This one stores 1 iron atom. So this whole complex structure is to store 1 iron atom, so it can be moved around the cell without reacting with something that it shouldn't, which is really intelligent design. So now we have some defense proteins. These are commonly referred to as antibodies, and they tag different things that are foreign to the human body. So on the end there, the yellow bits, they are they're specifically made so they will bond with certain things that are not supposed to be in the human body, and they like tag them kind of, so the white blood cells can come and destroy them, and it helps prevent diseases and that kind of stuff in the human body, which again is really intelligent design, so we can keep bad stuff out of us. So these other proteins, transport proteins. So on the right, you can see how complex it is. But every single little dot you see there is a different atom, and they are all folded exactly right so that they can do their jobs. And there's 3 different types of transport proteins, and they control what comes in and out of the cell. So cells can get what they need and excrete what they don't need. And again, incredibly complex. So the next type of protein are hormone proteins. So hormonal proteins are like basic receptors type things. They are more like antenna signals that tell the cell to do different things. So the one I chose is insulin, because as you know, Caleb's diabetic, so I have a little bit of experience with the way this one works. So the insulin hormone will bond with a specific receptor in the cell that tells another protein, another movement protein, to open up and let in more glucose, which again is incredibly complex. That this one molecule was created to attach to this one specific part of the cell to open up another part so that little particles can get in so that it works. Our body is the most complicated machine in the world, and it's not even a machine, it's completely organic. So this is the last term protein, and I think it's the coolest one. So the enzyme will take a molecule, and it's made in a specific way so that it will bond with one molecule. It will only bond with one molecule, but it will bond with that molecule and then break it into 2 separate ones, or vice vice versa, it will take two molecules and put it into one. So it arranges the molecules right next to each other so that they are forced to bond in a specific configuration so that it works. And again, like, if this was all created randomly, how would you have a molecule that just is created to bond with two separate ones so that they go together and then is unchanged itself, so it does it again and again and again and again. Again, it's just incredible intelligent design. So, and in one human cell, there are 90 to 100 million proteins in just one human cell. All these different types, all doing different things, all very vital for the cell to work. So, in 1952, two scientists named Miller and Urey set out to prove that a creator was not necessary for life. And they called it the Miller-Urey experiment because they're very creative. They put a bunch of basically chemical soup and then they shot a bunch of electricity into it and to try and create life, to see if it could happen like a pool of chemicals or whatever. And to their credit, as far as all the sources that I can find, they did manage to create 20 basic amino acids. So here they are. There's the 20 basic amino acids of life. They did manage to create those. But they didn't get any farther, and the basic amino acids broke down themselves over time because they didn't have the cell to support them. So did they really create life? Not close. They did not nearly create life, because the most basic form of life is a single-celled organism. That is the closest, like the smallest thing we have for life. They created basic amino acids, which are the building blocks of a protein, which then makes cells with a few other things. And so they were like, they weren't even close. And even if they were, like they did somehow create life, wouldn't it prove just the opposite? That it did take a lot of intelligent design and creation and someone really brilliant to create the life in the first place. So even if they were successful, would it really prove their point? But they weren't, and I don't think they ever will be. And I lost where I was. So, a protein is made up of hundreds of amino acids in a very specific chain. Well, and if you get even one wrong, it can completely mess stuff up. So, sickle cell anemia is a single point mutation where when they're creating the protein, a single valine, which is the top row, third from the left, replaces a glutamic acid, which is a second row from the bottom in the middle there. So all I did was switch those. The whole rest of the protein is perfect, but there's that one mistake, and that creates a disease called sickle cell. So every single one in the exact right order is absolutely essential in order for the human body to work. So we're still not alive though, even if we create just proteins. We have to get to the human cell. So proteins combine with carbohydrates and lipids to make a cell. And this is the simplest form of life. It looks very simple. And every single one of those organelles you see in there are made up of their own proteins and carbohydrates and lipids and that kind of stuff. And they all have very different jobs and that kind of stuff. But I didn't want to carry too long about kind of specifics, so just know that it gets progressively more and more complex at the same sort of rate, and it's built of the same things. So, cells are made of these proteins, then these cells combine to make tissue. Then the tissue combines to make organs, which again are incredibly complex even in of themselves. So now we've gone from an atom to DNA to a protein to a cell and to tissue to now a human heart. So hopefully you're starting to understand how incredibly complex it is to get from atoms to here. So organs combine to make systems. So this is the circulatory system. It's also like the nerve system and the digestive system. And again, still incredibly complex. Every layer we go up, we're using the previous layer our body is made up of 37.2 trillion cells. 37.2 trillion cells. And every single one of them are necessary for us to live and breathe and function at maximum capacity. And they all have different roles and different that kind of thing. And it is we are incredibly complex. So, how many of you got all the numbers I said this sermon? So, 3 million base pairs of DNA in one cell. There's 20 basic amino acids that are formed to make the proteins. There are between 90 and 100 million proteins in a cell, so I just took the median of 95 million proteins. And there are 37.2 trillion cells in our body. So if you multiply that together, the chance of all of that lining up exactly perfect is 4.24 times 10 to the 32nd, or that number. It is, or no, it's 2.12, my bad, the last one was wrong. And that is 1.12 non-alien, if you're wondering. So, two scientists set out to prove that, mathematically you could create life randomly. And they came up with the chance of life happening randomly was 1 times 10 to the 40,000. To the 40,000. That's a 1 with 40,000 zeros after it. So if you're wondering what that looks like, that's half of it. So there has to be a creator. The chances are just too astronomical that all of that would line up so perfectly. So and any other time in science, when you get a number that is that big, it rounds to 0. In any other thing in science, that number is so small, it rounds to 0. But in this one case, scientists are willing to overlook that because it doesn't meet their agenda. So they're like, okay, this number matters, you see, it's possible. But no, it's not possible. There's no way it could randomly happen. Let's get to that very good number. So I've heard it said, like the life-going thing, the quote I heard was, it's like a tornado going through a junkyard and creating a perfect Boeing 737. But I didn't think that sounded correct, because that sounded more like a cell to me, going through a junkyard and creating a Boeing 737. So, since there are 37.2 trillion cells, I'd say it's more like 37.2 trillion tornadoes going through 37.2 trillion junkyards and making 37.2 trillion Boeing 737s that can all communicate and work together to complete one individual task. So everything you do is a miracle, because that's why it's called the miracle of life, because it's so incredibly complex. So the next time you're looking at anything in nature, just think, it's so complex, then you have to have a creator. So I know this is kind of short, and yeah, it's my first time. So I would like to thank the elders for letting me come up here and speak and all that. And I'd like to thank you guys for being such a great influence in my life as I've kind of grown up at this church and will be leaving soon. So I just want to thank you all for listening to what I have to say. I'm sorry if it sounded more like a science presentation, but that's kind of what I knew about. And I know you guys are like a lot of pastors, so I didn't want to try and do something wrong. So I did something